Hi everyone, welcome to my Tips and Tricks channel where I share with you ideas for living a copacetic life. My name is Kristen Cole, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm here to share with you evidence-based practices for enhancing quality sleep. I like this quote at the bottom of the slide here. We need to sleep in order to not be sleepy. Makes sense, doesn't it? This is a quote from Dr. William Dement, the leading authority in sleep science. In this video, I'm going to cover the nature of sleep, the stages of sleep, what happens when we don't get good quality sleep, what's called sleep hygiene, and then you can create a quality sleep action plan. Here's a reality check. In the United States, we're not doing well at all when it comes to the quality of sleep. The lighter color areas on the map indicate states that are doing quite well with their sleep quality, and the darker colored states indicate areas where people are really struggling with their sleep. They may be getting a certain amount of sleep, but their quality is really poor. So overall, America is not doing well related to sleep. It doesn't mean that everybody has a diagnosed sleep disorder, but many people in the population have what we call disordered sleep. Well, what is sleep? Why do we even have to sleep? Historically, researchers believe that we slept to rest our brain, and we know so much more now that's really just not the case. We have biological clocks within our brain and our body that produce what's called circadian rhythms, and these rhythms will regulate our physical, mental, and behavioral changes through a 24-hour cycle. We will essentially operate on a 24-hour cycle. If you were to put a person in a pitch black room for 5 days and provide the essentials for them to survive, but you never provide them any kind of light or any knowledge of what time it is, they will still operate on a 24-hour cycle where they're likely to be awake for about 16 hours and sleep for about 8. So this is something that's within us. The circadian rhythm is really important, and it's important that it's synchronized because it impacts our energy, our mood, our hormonal release. It can impact our eating habits, our ability to learn, and our alertness. When we're seeing sunlight in the morning, the light rays that are emitted are going to wake us up and suppress what's called melatonin. This is a natural substance in our brain and our body. When the sun sets, melatonin will start to get released within our brain and our body. In about 4 to 6 hours after that, we should start to feel sleepy. Now, not enough natural melatonin is released to just knock us out, but it's part of keeping us on this 24-hour cycle. So the circadian rhythm is really important. As I mentioned, it's important for it to be synchronized. What would disrupt our circadian rhythm? Serious sleep deprivation could disrupt it. That would be having really poor sleep for night after night after night. So one bad night of sleep isn't necessarily going to completely throw off our circadian rhythm, but when that's happening on an ongoing basis, that can have an impact. Alcohol and drugs can impact our circadian rhythm. Some medications, prescription medications, can do it. Working a rotating shift work schedule, which means that you're on different shifts each day, perhaps a morning shift one day, the afternoon shift the second day, the third day you're back on the morning shift, the fourth day you're on a graveyard overnight shift. That type of schedule is incredibly unhealthy for the circadian rhythm. And also jet lag, when we're crossing time zones, that can disrupt our circadian rhythm. Well, what would happen if we do have a disrupted circadian rhythm? How would we know? How would it impact us? It can change our mood. We can get really grouchy and irritable. It makes it difficult to concentrate, which is going to impact our ability to pay attention, perhaps learn and remember, and it decreases our motivation. It also can make us accident prone. So it's really, really important for us to have synchronized circadian rhythms. That's a very important goal. Disrupted circadian rhythms also have some significant health outcomes. A disrupted circadian rhythm is correlated with sleep disorders like insomnia and sleep apnea, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, depression, and bipolar disorders. So we don't really get away with having poor quality sleep. We might think we're getting away with it, but physiologically and emotionally, not so much. There are 4 stages of sleep and another stage called REM. As you start to go to sleep, your lightest stage of sleep, where you're likely to wake up if you hear something, is called stage 1. Have you ever noticed when you start to fall asleep, your head starts to drop and you get the sensation that you're falling? That's why they call it falling asleep. It's an interesting sensation that happens as we start to get into our sleep cycle. In stage 2, we're asleep, but if there's a loud noise, we're going to wake up. Stages 3 and 4, you are definitely asleep. You're passed out, you're having great physical rest, and it's hard to wake somebody up when they're in stages 3 and 4. The other stage is called the REM stage. It stands for rapid eye movement. It's an interesting stage that was discovered in the 1950s. Before that, they thought that sleep was just to really rest your brain. What they discovered with REM is that in our most deepest sleep, the brain is highly active instead of relaxing. And it's also called paradoxical sleep because on one hand, your body is temporarily paralyzed. You're not going to be moving at all. And yet on the other hand, your brain is highly active. It's really alert and processing a lot of information, consolidating information that came in to your brain and your experiences through that day. It takes about 70 to 90 minutes to get into your first stage of REM. It's really important to have quality REM. Let me show you what happens with our brain. So this is a depiction of our brain waves. As you're awake right now, you're paying attention to the video, you're concentrating, you're listening. This is what your brain waves look like at the top. That indicates activity. As we start to go to sleep, stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can see that our brain slows down. Those brain waves become wider and larger. That indicates that the brain is slowing down. But look what happens when we get into REM. It almost looks like the top one, the top brainwave stage of being awake. And this is where they realized it's so important for us to stay asleep for long periods of time in order to get REM. What researchers did to test this out is they had participants go into a sleep study, and every time they saw that the person's brain was indicating they were getting into REM, they would wake them up and then wake them up and wake them up. So they let them get stages 1 through 4 sleep, but they didn't allow them to have any REM stage sleep through the night. The results were really impactful. These people felt like they hadn't slept at all. They felt horrible. And it really indicates the importance of good REM. So keep that in mind. We want good REM stage sleep. How do we get into REM? It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, ta-da, we're in REM, here we go. It's a process, and that's why it takes 70 to 90 minutes to get into your first stage of REM. So we go through stages 1, 2, 3, 4. We start to back out of that, 3, 2, and then finally we get our first stage of REM. And this is why it's important to stay asleep. You can see as we go through the night, we need less time in stages 3 and 4, and we're going to spend a whole lot more time in REM. These REM stages become longer through the night. Now this is a depiction of somebody sleeping 8 hours. Imagine if a person wakes up every hour. What's going to happen is they're going to wake up before they get any REM. They'll go back to sleep and then wake up again before they get into REM. So somebody could wake up every hour, sleep 8 hours, so they got the quantity of time that is somewhat ideal for humans, but the quality is really poor because they didn't get any REM. And that's why it's really important to focus on quality of sleep rather than quantity of sleep. Well, how much, speaking of quantity, how much sleep do we actually need? For humans, it's about 7 to 9 hours. And it's important for you to figure out, are you more on that 7-hour side of the sleep duration need, or are you more on the 9-hour side? You can see by comparison to other species where we are in this 7 to 9 hour range. Some animals really don't need much sleep at all, and some get lots and lots of sleep. If you have a cat, you know they sleep all the time. So why can't I sleep? It's really important to get curious about that. Rather than just making an assumption and saying, I know exactly why I'm not sleeping, get curious. Really look at the things that could be contributing to you not sleeping well. Perhaps you're taking a prescription medication that disrupts sleep. That would be a great conversation for you to have with your prescribing physician and read the labels and notice if there are any side effects of potential sleep disruption. Depression mimics sleep. So it may be that we're sleeping all the time, and really it's not so much a problem with our sleep, but maybe we're depressed. That could be an indication of depression. Using alcohol and cannabis can definitely disrupt our sleep. A lot of people will say, well, I'll just have a couple drinks because it'll get me to sleep at night. Or I'll just smoke some weed because it'll help me get to sleep at night. It's true, those are depressant components of those substances that are going to get somebody to go to sleep. However, they're going to hang out in stages 3 and 4, and it's going to rob them of REM. They're not going to get enough time in REM. So whilst using alcohol or cannabis to get to sleep may seem beneficial, in the long run it's really unhealthy because it doesn't allow a person to have enough time in REM. So the next day they really don't feel restored. Stimulant use for sure is going to disrupt our sleep. Is somebody using caffeine and nicotine? Those are stimulants that will disrupt our sleep cycle. Having diabetes, cardiovascular disease, these types of medical problems can definitely disrupt sleep. Having a hyperthyroid or an overactive thyroid, it mimics anxiety, and also it can disrupt sleep. Having heartburn or GERD can definitely disrupt sleep, and menopause can do that as well. So there are multiple reasons why a person may not be sleeping. It's really important to get curious about that. Part of understanding what's causing the disruption of sleep is what's going to help a person resolve the problem. Here are my tips and tricks for enhancing your sleep. We're going to start with some things for you to be aware of and to be educated about. One of the things to be aware of is that prescription sleep medications have 3 significant warnings on them. One is that they can be potentially addictive. So if somebody is taking a prescription sleep medication with addictive components to it, a person can start to take those medications, feel very relieved that they're finally sleeping. However, a tolerance can be built up, so they end up needing more and more to have the same effect. That's where the cycle of addiction can start around sleep medications. So we want to be really careful about that. The other problem with sleep medications is that it is addressing the symptoms, not the problem. We're treating the symptoms, not the problem. So a person would need that medication to continue to address the symptoms, but the underlying problem's really not getting resolved. And the third thing that's really important to understand about prescription medications is they rob us of REM. That is the last thing we need. So I'm not advising you to suddenly stop a prescription medication that your physician has provided for you and asked you to continue to follow for your health plan. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm trying to do is educate you so that you can have these kinds of conversations with your prescribing physicians and perhaps discuss some medications that might not have these kinds of side effects to them. Similar warnings have to do with the over-the-counter sleep medications, the ones that advertise as being sleep aids. Usually they have one of 2 components within them. They either have alcohol in them, which again is going to get us to sleep but not allow us to have good REM, or they're going to have an antihistamine in them that has a sleep side effect, which again is going to get us to sleep, but it's not going to allow us to have great quality REM. So taking those things once in a while, okay. On a regular basis, becoming dependent on them, not such a great idea. Another thing to be aware of and to be educated about is a substance called valerian. Valerian is an herb, it's a flowering plant, and it can be purchased in multiple forms like a tea or a pill or drops. It acts on a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA is our calming neurotransmitter. However, there's really no scientific evidence to show that valerian is an effective method for enhancing sleep quality. You may also know people who take over-the-counter melatonin pills. They are trying to activate that natural melatonin system in our body, and while there's evidence that shows taking 1 melatonin the first night you cross a time zone when you go to sleep can be effective for helping you get on that time zone more quickly, there's really no evidence to show that melatonin is a cure for sleep problems. Sure, it's going to make us more sedated and more sleepy. However, once again, we're treating the symptoms, we're not really treating the problem. The beverage manufacturers are producing a lot of GABA drinks. And again, GABA is that calming neurotransmitter. So they're advertising these drinks as having GABA in them and they're going to calm us down at night. I promise you there's no neurotransmitter in that drink. It's a promotion. And I already mentioned the warnings on alcohol and cannabis. Again, they're going to help a person get to sleep, but they're going to rob them of REM. There's the potential for increased tolerance and developing addiction. So we want to be educated and beware of those types of things. A few more things to be aware of and to be educated about. The only two populations that can really get away with napping and not have it impact their sleep quality are babies and elders. So if you're not a baby and you're not over 65 years old, the rule for quality sleep is no naps. Now there is an exception to this, which I'll describe in a moment. The research shows that napping on a regular basis can actually double our potential for developing Alzheimer's disease. And also importantly, it's going to disrupt the circadian rhythm. That's the internal clock we really want synchronized. So a disrupted circadian rhythm is like using a clock or a watch that's giving you inaccurate time all the time. You're not going to function really well. So no naps. Now here's the caveat to the no naps rule. If you're a power napper, then you can take naps. A power napper is somebody who in the middle of the day can go to sleep, fall asleep right away, be asleep for 15 to 20 minutes. The alarm goes off in 15 to 20 minutes, and they wake up and they feel alert, they feel totally refreshed and completely energized. That is a power napper, and there's research to support that that is fine. It won't disrupt a circadian rhythm. The key here is 15 to 20 minutes and feeling refreshed once you wake up. I'm not a power napper. I wish I was. I envy those of you that are power nappers. But if you're sleeping in the middle of the day over 20 minutes, you're definitely going to be disrupting your circadian rhythm. So no naps beyond the power nap. I also encourage you not to watch the news before you go to sleep. When we're starting to go to sleep, our brain will start to be processing all the information that's gone on for us through that day. And if the last thing that our brain is really absorbing is distressing news, it can create disruption through our sleep cycle. I recommend that you don't lay down right after eating. Try to wait 2 hours before you lay down after you eat. This has to do with our digestive system, and when we're in a horizontal position with a full stomach, it's going to create pressure that can then cause heartburn and irritation. Those things can disrupt our sleep. If you're somebody who wakes up in the night because your bladder's waking you up, and you're really sick and tired of that, you don't want your bladder to keep waking you up in the night so that you go and pee, I recommend that you don't drink a lot of liquids late at night. So perhaps 3 hours before you're actually going to sleep, stop consuming fluids, and then right before you go to sleep, relieve your bladder, go to the bathroom, and see if that might help you be able to stay asleep through the night. Another tip and trick for you is to not use nicotine, especially late at night. It's a stimulant, and that's going to activate our brain and our body and disrupt our circadian rhythm. The same idea goes for caffeine. Caffeine has an extended half-life, so if you're using caffeine after 1 p.m., that's likely to disrupt your circadian rhythm in the evening. Sleep hygiene is a series of recommendations that are evidence-based practices for having great quality sleep. Sleep hygiene is not how clean you are when you climb into bed. It has to do with a series of recommendations. A very important recommendation is for you to sleep and wake up at the same time 7 days a week. For people who like to sleep in, this can be pretty saddening news. They don't like to hear this. However, in order to keep your circadian rhythm synchronized, you'll need to wake up and go to bed at the same time 7 days a week. You have about a 1 hour period of time before and after that you can play around with. So if you typically go to bed at 10, you'll need to go to bed between 9 and 11. If you typically wake up at 6, you'll need to wake up between 5 and 7 on a regular basis. This is going to keep your circadian rhythm really well synchronized, and it's going to help you feel so much better. Getting exposure to morning light and to afternoon light is really important for helping your brain and body know when to release and not release natural melatonin. The light waves in the morning will suppress the melatonin so that we feel more awake, the light waves from the sun. And those light waves from the sun in the afternoon will trigger the brain and body to start to release melatonin so that we start to calm down and feel ready to go to bed about 4 to 6 hours later. So it's important to try and get some exposure to morning and afternoon light. Try to avoid bright fluorescent lights in the evening just before you go to bed for the same reason. It's also helpful to exercise consistently. Most people will be activated and awake if they exercise vigorously right before they go to sleep. So find the time that works for you. What time of day does regular exercise work for you in order to enhance your sleep? It's also helpful to have bedtime rituals. Our brain and our body gets trained really easily through what's called behavior modification techniques. Your brain wants to have some sense of prediction of what's going to be happening. So if you have these rituals that you perform on a regular basis prior to going to sleep, it will start to alert your brain and body to calm down and slow down. Those types of rituals include things like brushing your teeth, washing your face, perhaps taking a shower, a warm bath, those types of things. So think about the types of rituals that you can be consistent with and do those every evening before you go to sleep, and that will start to let your brain and body know, all right, we're going to sleep, time to settle down and not get activated. Your bedroom should really only be used for two purposes: sleep and sex. There's a lot of research that shows people who study and work on their bed have disrupted sleep patterns. It's really important to train your brain that when you're on your bed, it doesn't get to be active and alert. It needs to settle down and calm down. Make sure that your bedroom is an environment that's going to enhance quality sleep. That means a really dark space, a quiet space, and one that's cool. Our body temperature drops a bit while we're sleeping, so a cool bedroom or sleeping environment tends to be helpful for sleep quality. If you have electronic devices around, make sure you hide them. Don't just put them on your bed with you with the ringer on. You need to get them away, put them away, have a look around your room where you're sleeping at night and notice if there are any lights showing. Are there blue lights, green lights, red lights on some of the devices that might be in your room? And if so, then cover them up with a piece of dark tape or something like that, because there's a lot of research coming out that's showing just having the blue lights around and those little device lights visible is disrupting our sleep quality. Whether or not you watch TV or read before you go to bed depends on you related to your sleep quality. Some people can watch TV and read and it will just knock them out. They'll go to sleep and they'll sleep through the night with the TV on or the book next to them. For other people, watching TV and reading really activates their brain, and so it will disrupt their sleep cycle. You need to figure out for yourself which is the case for you. I also recommend that you work on incorporating some relaxation exercises into those bedtime rituals. Exercises like stretching, listening to calm music, doing some deep diaphragmatic breathing, meditating. These types of rituals will get us to settle down prior to going to sleep. You also might think about incorporating a decaffeinated tea into your evening ritual. Drinking tea like chamomile, which doesn't have any caffeine in it, can be very calming and soothing for us. Rather than taking a synthetic over-the-counter melatonin pill, you might consider eating some foods with melatonin in it. The same is the case with tryptophan. So rather than taking tryptophan over the counter, tryptophan is a substance that calms us down, and it's found in a lot of different types of foods. So I'm going to show you a list of foods with melatonin and with tryptophan in them. You might consider incorporating these types of foods into your dinner or your evening snack in order to help enhance your sleep quality. Tomatoes and cucumbers have melatonin in them, as do apples, oranges, bananas, and cherries. Any type of rice has melatonin, so it doesn't matter which type of rice you prefer. Walnuts have melatonin. Almonds have melatonin, and sunflower seeds do as well. So think about how you might incorporate some of these snacks into an evening time snack, but not too close to bedtime. Here are some foods with tryptophan in them. Milk products, cheese products have tryptophan. Tuna fish, bananas, oats, and sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, and chia seeds have tryptophan. Turkey has tryptophan, which is often why people get sleepy after a big turkey meal, although that may just be that they overate, that makes them sleepy. And soy products have tryptophan. I encourage you to think about incorporating some of these foods into your evening meals. Certain scents are going to enhance our sleep quality. There's research that shows that lavender and lemon balm really calms us down. Perhaps you will incorporate this into your sleeping environment through a candle or some type of a scent. It's important to be consistent and to be disciplined. Rather than trying different types of sleep hygiene techniques all at once, pick a few and be really consistent. I think the most important thing to be consistent about is going to bed and waking up at the same time every night. If you're still awake after you've been laying in bed for 20 minutes and the reason you're awake is because you're mind racing, I have a tip for you. What you need to do is train your brain to not be awake. So if you're not asleep in 20 minutes and it's because you're mind racing, you're thinking of all the things that you did today or all the things you didn't do and you need to do tomorrow, what I recommend you do is have a book or a journal or notebook out in another room. So after 20 minutes, when you're not asleep, get up out of bed, go to another area of where you're living, and write down every single thing you're thinking. We call this a data dump. You literally are just putting out on paper everything that's going on in your mind. This technique does not work if you use a computer or a phone. So if you're typing in or using any kind of a computer or phone, research shows this isn't as effective. So get that old-fashioned pen and paper out, write down everything you're thinking about. Then what you need to do is be very ritualistic about it. You need to close the book, put it in a drawer, and close the drawer. You're essentially teaching your brain, we're done with this, it's put away. Then go back to bed. If you're not asleep in 20 minutes because you're mind racing again, get up, go get that notebook, and do the routine again. Write for 10 or 15 minutes. Don't worry about what you're writing. Don't worry about whether or not you can read what you wrote. Just dump everything in your mind onto this paper, close it, put it in a drawer, shut the door, and go back to bed. If you do this consistently for a number of nights, it's very likely that you will not have a problem getting to sleep. If you're a person who wakes up too early, I have a tip for you. It's called chronotherapy. Perhaps you're going to sleep at a regular bedtime, but then you wake up so much earlier than you really want to, and you just can't get back to sleep. Essentially, what we need to do with chronotherapy is reset your circadian rhythm. We need to reset your internal clock. It's not a quick fix, but it's incredibly effective. So if the problem is I need to sleep 8 hours, but I'm only sleeping 4, I get into bed at 10, I wake up at 2 a.m. and I can't get back to sleep. The goal here is going to be for me to get in bed at 10 and wake up at 6, so I get that 8 hours that I know I need. What you need to do over a period of time, it's going to take over a week, is back up the time that you actually get in bed. So you keep that wake time consistent. Think about what time do you want to wake up 7 days a week, and that time stays consistent through this chronotherapy intervention. You can see the middle column here, the wake time is always at 6 a.m. If you're only getting 4 hours of sleep and you want 8, you need to get in bed at the time that indicates that. So you don't let yourself get in bed until 2 a.m. I know that sounds ridiculous, but really you're only sleeping 4 hours anyway, and you want to get up at 6. So you get in bed on night 1 at 2 a.m. and you wake up at 6, you set that alarm, and you get up no matter how you feel, whether you rested or not, you get up and you stay awake that day. Night number 2, you go to bed at 1:30 in the morning, get up at 6. Night 3, you go to bed at 1 in the morning, get up at 6. The next night, 12:30, get up at 6. Midnight, get up at 6. 11:30, get up at 6, and so on. So what you can see is we're very gradually resetting that internal clock, that circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm doesn't usually respond to a quick fix. If you just suddenly decided that, well, I'm just going to make myself stay asleep, it doesn't really respond well to that. So this gradual type of resetting it, or chronotherapy, is incredibly effective. It takes discipline, it takes consistency. It's really likely to work. So if this is a situation for you where you're waking up way too early and you can't get back to sleep, give this a try. You may also try some of this sleep related apps that you can put on your phone or your iPad or your devices. Some of these sleep apps, when you download them, you then need to put your phone under your pillow because it's going to be measuring your movement and sound. You need to put the microphone on, allow that access. Some of the other ones, you put it on the nightstand next to you. So have a look at some of the sleep apps that are available. If you're somebody who likes to have some background noise, then you might download one of the apps that provides what's called white noise, or that kind of blurred sound that doesn't peak our brain activity, but rather lets us relax. And maybe it will get rid of some sounds that are in your environment that you can't control. You already have some sleep app options through your iPhone and your iPad. You go to the clock icon on your phone and your device, and then look through there and you'll see a bedtime opportunity for you to change and make some settings. And then we'll actually give you a guesstimate of your sleep cycle through those stages and the REM. It's not 100% accurate, but it's a pretty good version of getting a look at how you're doing. It's time to make your plan. Identify 5 of those unhealthy sleep habits that I covered that you're willing to stop today. Write those down. And then write down 5 healthy sleep hygiene techniques that I covered that you're willing to implement this week. Think about the next 7 days. Which one of those suggestions seems reasonable to you to try out for the next 7 days? And I encourage you to share that information with a friend or a colleague in order to make a commitment. It's helpful when other people know what we're trying to do with our goals. It helps us keep ourselves accountable, or they help us be accountable. The bottom line is this: you should wake up feeling good and refreshed every day, and you should have energy all day long. I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful for enhancing quality sleep. I really encourage you to try some of them and enhance your sleep in order to increase the experience of living a copacetic life.